Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to Matters of Public Importance right here on Channel 6. I am Gail Teixeira, Chief Whip of the Parliamentary Opposition, and here representing the Members of Parliament for the People's Progressive Party Civic and the People's Progressive Party. Welcome to our program. It's a lovely day, and I'm sure that you'll find this program really interesting, as we're going to be focusing today on what's going on in the Regional Democratic Councils. And so, as always on this program, we focus on matters of public importance, bringing you information and discussions on issues and matters that are of concern to you, the Guyanese public, right here between 12:30 and 1:30 on Channel 6 every Thursday. Just to remind you before we go into the program, the telephone numbers here, 225-0010 and 225-0008. And as I said last time, and we'll keep repeating it until, what is the schedule of the Office of the Leader of the Opposition? Well, as we've been saying it every week, we're up and running and we have our office, and we're at 304 Church Street between New Garden and Peter Rose Street in Queenstown. Our offices are open from Monday to Saturday, and we are open from 9 o'clock to about 5 o'clock every day, Monday to Friday, and from Saturday from 9 to about 2 o'clock. So we have members of Parliament there, including former Prime Minister Sam Hinds drops in and helps us with the work in the office, and of course former head of the Presidential Secretary, Dr. Roger Luncheon. So please feel free to, if you have issues, matters you need representation on, you want clarification on, please feel free to go by the Office of the Leader of the Opposition at 304 Church Street. And so Dr. Luncheon is there from 1 o'clock on Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Bishop Edgel is there on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Zulfikar Mustafa is there on Thursdays at 1 o'clock. And we have other members of Parliament, Dr. Westford, who's there on Wednesday afternoons. And the lawyers who are in the members of Parliament are there specifically on Saturdays between 10 and 1 o'clock on Saturdays for matters that are related to legal issues that people may have. And so there are a number of lawyers on our side, and they are there on Saturdays. Now, you know, we also have geographic MPs. And so the geographic MPs run their programs and are available one day a week in their regions for the public to pop in and see them. So that Colin Crowell, who is a Member of Parliament, geographic MP for Region 1, who I will introduce to you in a little while, will be there on July the 26th at the Mabaruma Freedom House office. In Region 4 on Saturdays at the Annandale PPP Freedom House office, you will find Gillian Burton Persaud, Member of Parliament, and she's there from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoons. At Eccles, at the MP Needle Kumar is there from 9 o'clock every Wednesday at the Eccles NDC office. In Region 5, at Bath, West Coast Berbice Freedom House office, MP Harry Gill will be there on Wednesdays from 9 o'clock. In Region 6, Dr. Vishwa Prasad runs programs in New Amsterdam at the Freedom House office on the first and the third Monday of every month. And in East Berbice Quarantine at number 63, he has programs at Freedom House office there from the second and fourth Monday of every month. So that you can reach, in Region 9, our geographic MP is there every week at the Freedom House office, almost every day at the Freedom House office in Letham. So please feel free to pop in and to talk to our MPs, to talk to the staff that we have in our geographic offices, to see in what way they can help you and to make representation on behalf of you, and in some cases just to have a good old political chat about what's going on. Well, today we have a really interesting program, as I promised you, and we said in previous programs we would have a special program on local government and the regional. So we have, as you know, in 1980 the Constitution was amended to provide for the regional administrative structures, and the first elections in 1985 to 4 regional councils was held. Of course, those elections were rigged, as you know, and have been documented, and so there's no question about whether they were rigged or not. They were. And then in 1992, with the first free and fair elections, the RDCs have been elected at the same time as the national elections being held. This is the first time, 2016, that any government in this country finds itself in the position where it does not control even 50% of the regional democratic councils. So although they said that we only did not win the government, in fact, there's election petition where we're challenging that, but that 7 of the 10 RDCs are controlled by the People's Progressive Party, and after the local government elections, 48 of the 70 local authorities we contested are controlled by the People's Progressive Party. This is a very, very unusual situation, and of course we have talked quite a number of times on this program about the 6 tied NDCs. So here's a very unusual situation where a government does not control 7 of the 10, 3/4 of the regions of this country. They do not have a majority, and they do not have a majority in the local government areas like NDCs and municipalities. So today, we brought with us these lovely gentlemen who are with me. Colin Crowell is a member of Parliament and a young person, former PS in the PVPC government, in local government. And he now shadows Minister of Communities, Mr. Ronald Bulcan, and he is a spokesperson for us for all regional and local government matters. So, Colin, thank you very much for coming on the program. And I have a special guest today because, you're hearing all about Region 5, and the regional chairman, Vic Chan Ramphal, who represents the PPC and is the chairman of Region 5 RDC, has been given a terrible time by the APNU AFC members in that council to prevent that council from even meeting. So it's very important that we give him a voice here, and you have a chance to hear what's really going on. And so today we're going to talk about what is this government doing that in the regions. So, and I think there's a dastardly plan. So I'm going to ask Colin, when you look at what's going on in the RDCs that are controlled by the PPP, for example, and the difficulties with the REOs and with the budgets, and we'll leave Region 5 as a special case for a little while, that is this a plan of the APNU AFC to stymie the operations of these bodies, and in fact, to make people feel that the PPP can't run these regions so they can win elections in 2020? Is that their strategy, why they're making life so difficult in these RDCs?
Correct. Good afternoon, everyone, to our TV and radio listeners. I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon. Before I respond, let me start out by saying that all is now well within the regions. And for us to assess what's happening within the regional system, we must recall what happened last year. First thing that the Ministry of Communities did was to replace all of the regional executive officers. Well, they did replace 9 out of the 10, and now all 10. And they started off by, first of all, advertising for regional executive officers, setting out clear criteria and qualifications, etc. And then in the midst, before the closing date,
right,
we saw the appointment of regional executive officers for Region 9, Region 8, and Region 6. And the 3 of them have one thing in common. They were either on the national list or on the regional list.
And this was the reason why they fired people in the public service, because they were candidates, including yourself.
Correct, and they were accusing the regional executive officers of being PPP REOs.
Right.
And so I must start out with that to respond to your question. And so while we would have won 7 out of the 10 regions, it is their way of using the regional executive officers to stymie the work within the regional system, as well as to ensure that things do not go smooth with respect to the functioning of the regional democratic councils. And as we go later in the program, I can show you, and we will explore a number of examples as to why we say so. And so even just now when we examine, and I'll provide some figures too,
right,
when we examine the expenditure for the respective regions, we will understand where your initial analysis of what is taking place by the Ministry of Communities with respect to intervening in the functioning within the regional system. It's quite frankly just want us to look bad.
Do you have any information like on the regions they control, which is Region 4, 7, and 10? Are things going better there? Are they smoother? Are the councillors being given such a difficult time? Because I know from Region 9, for example, the complaint is the REO refuses to give the monthly financial releases. So the region hasn't got a clue what money is being spent, what's coming in, what's being returned, nothing. Is that the experience in...
Well, the functioning of the RDCs within those three regions, my understanding, it's been going pretty smooth.
So our political strategy question is right.
Correct, but only thing when we come to the expenditure, they are still a little low, and so
Yes.
we'll provide figures shortly. But maybe, I don't know where you go next if you want us to do some analysis, what's happening
No,
within the
please,
region.
please, go ahead.
And maybe let me start with the RDCs.
Right.
And it is important for our listeners to understand the regional democratic councillors are all political elected officials. And so hence they have a separate role in which they function within the region. The regional executive officers, apart from being the accounting officer of the region, is also the clerk of the council.
Right.
But however, what we have in many of the regions is that the regional executive officers are usurping the functions of the RDC, and the regional chairman more so. And so that is an issue that has to be dealt with. This point was made clear by both the Minister of Communities very publicly, and even at the swearing-in of the regional chairman as vice chairman, where His Excellency said clearly that to ensure that you must have, for smooth functioning within the regional system, the regional executive officers must carry out the mandate and the role and whatever instruction, albeit lawful, that are given by the RDCs.
Yeah.
But we don't have, contrary to that, many of the instructions are not being carried out. When you review the action sheet from the RDC minutes, little or no movement in many of the decisions made. So decisions that are being made at the RDC level are not being carried out. And then we also have whereby the RDC may make certain decisions that are in the best interest of the region, maybe to have a priority, to have a shift of priority work to be done as a response to emergency, etc.
Right.
And the regional executive officer seems fit not to carry out and that instruction. And so we don't, and so instead of the working relationship between the regions, the RDC and the REO improving, it has gotten worse.
Yes.
And we're calling for the intervention of the Minister of more so the Minister of Communities to intervene and to ensure and to clearly ensure that the instruction is passed that we must understand our various roles. He himself can be accused of not following the necessary guideline, and I'll give you an example. Yesterday, well, I just came out to Port Kaituma yesterday morning, and there's currently a protest ongoing for the road, and maybe I'll spend some time later in the program to update on Region 1, but I just want to give this example. And the Minister of Communities has convened that he's going to intervene with some emergency real allocation of resources for road work to be done. This was not conveyed to the regional chairman, nor to the chairperson of the NDC. And the NDC was meeting as per statutory yesterday. This was conveyed to someone in Port Kaituma through the political structure. And so that is something that we've been having a number of complaints about from our
I didn't touch it.
from our RDCs, whereby information that is flowing from the various ministries are not coming through the proper channel, but through the political structure.
Right.
So that is the APNU and the AFC structure on the ground. And this should cease immediately.
No, but clearly the government is undermining what are democratic operations of the Regional Democratic Council. These are elected bodies, and therefore, and the laws and the Constitution govern how they're run and how they're managed. As you correctly said, the REOs are mainly the clerks or the servants of the RDC and the regional administration. They are not a law unto themselves, but they seem to be given a lot of political power by the government.
Correct.
To override, override and undermine the elected officials in these regions. You know, so if we look at all the regions, let's look at the budget issue, for example. What's going on? The budget was passed in February 2016. We're getting reports that a lot of the project implementation is extraordinarily low, not only in the regions, but in government
Yes.
as well, the ministries. So is that correct? And what kind of, do you have any
Ye-
examples of that?
Your information is correct, and maybe for our viewers, let me provide some mid-year analysis. The percentage would obviously change within the past couple of days, but I'm pretty close
Is
to
it up to
accurate.
June the 30th?
Yes.
Right.
Region 1. The expenditure for Region 1, and I'm giving the rounded percentage,
Right.
is close to approximately 20%.
This is
As
capital
of-
or current? or
As of
both?
mid-year, we're speaking of capital.
Okay, capital.
And the total allocation for capital with the 10 regions is the vicinity of 3.7 billion. So we're talking about 54 million out of 325 million
For Region 1.
for Region 1. Region 2, we're speaking about a mid-year expenditure on the capital of 15%.
Hey.
Region 3 has shown good numbers, and they are the vicinity of close to 45%. Region 4, right here, 12%.
Wow. Wow. You want to stick a pin for that?
Sure.
What is happening in Region 4? I live in Region 4. I want to know. And most of our viewers live here too.
It is for that reason we're not hearing what are some of the projects. We're not, you're accustomed to at the
Yeah,
governmental
sure.
level to see a
Sure.
lot of commissioning, a lot of launching
Yeah,
and so
yeah, yeah.
forth. We're
Or
not
just
hearing it.
construction work going on. You're seeing things, you're visible, knowing things are going on. Other than the Carafesta median, and fixing some of the roads for the CARICOM heads.
Yes.
What else is going on in Region 4? And that doesn't seem to be Region 4 projects. Those are central government
Correct.
projects.
Yes. So
You know,
we're not hearing anything much.
So, okay.
Region 5, where my friend is from. Region 5 is in the vicinity of 15%.
Very poor.
Yeah.
Region 6, we're talking about 20% for Region 6. Region 7, a region that they control, Region 7 is close to 30%.
So Region 7 is doing better than Region 4.
Correct.
Yeah.
Region 8, I must commend Region 8. Region 8 is an approximation of 50% of their capital.
And that's controlled by the PPP.
And that's controlled by the PVP.
Yeah.
Region 9, appalling figures. I know you have vested interest in Region 9. Region 9, we're speaking about close to 12% of their capital program
Oh, dear.
expended.
This is terrible.
Region 10, we're talking about close to 20% for Region 10.
But this is extraordinary poor showing.
On average,
Yeah.
for all 10 regions, we're speaking about 25% of the expenditure of their capital program.
And we are in the 7th month of the year.
And
That's
yeah,
unbelievable.
correct.
I don't think we've ever seen those figures before, have we?
And what is of concern, we haven't, and what is of concern, we have not seen publicly any alarm statement being made
No.
by whether it's from the Ministry of Presidency or the respective minister expressing concern about the low percentage,
No.
about the disbursements, etc. And we're not speaking about NDC. When we come to NDC just now,
Yes.
we hear something alarming too
Yes,
weird.
exactly.
And so this is of concern to all of us because as part of the driver of the economy, and since
Yep.
and we would have seen the denial, only today I read a statement where one of the article mentioned about Mr. Gulsaran speaking about the denial about the government, about the dismal failure of the
Right.
economic performance. And one of the drivers of the expenditure within the country is government spending.
Exactly.
And so
Absolutely.
they're controlling their spending, and if they're controlling their spending and it's at this low percentage, it just shows you their management of the economy.
Yeah. It's around something around 60% of the spending is from government. In
Correct.
terms of the economy. So that this is an economic downturn where nothing is circulating, business is slow, you're sitting on these billions of dollars and nothing is happening. So it's not generating economic activity in the regions and allowing people in businesses, even at the regional level, to be able to employ people or to gain employment for themselves. This is ridiculous. And I
but-
see that the Minister of Finance, usually, and I'll tell you from my experience being governor, I'm sure the same with you, that mid-year around June, the Minister of Finance, whether it was Ashni or years before, Mr. Barrett Jagdeo, would be shouting from the rooftops if we were slipping below a certain point of
Correct,
projection. the Minister of Finance seems to be quite happy with what's going on. He's making no statements, and I don't know, I'm not aware they're sending out circulars trying to rev up the regions to move forward. Usually when these things happen, ministers and they get called into Ministry of Finance and told to
I'm aware
speed up.
they did have a recent meeting with the Ministry of Communities. Maybe
Yeah.
our chairman probably
Right.
can say what that
Yeah.
meeting was about.
Are they concerned?
Nothing much was mentioned about the progress of the region, the developmental work, and so on. Very little was said about that. More of what was said there to us is the regional flags, right? That took most of the time at that last meeting that we had, the discussion on the regional
How
flags.
recent was this meeting, Mr. Ramphel? How long ago was this meeting?
Approximately six weeks ago. I think. 4
Oh,
to 6
so they
weeks
haven't
ago.
had actually a recent meeting.
Not so
But
recent.
I mean, clearly, the point that the PPP keeps making is that the government seems to have problems with priorities. What is the priority? And I've said on this program, and quoting from President Clinton, was it's the economy, stupid. If you don't get the economy right and you don't move on these
Right.
issues, what else is there you're talking about? So to call a meeting just for regional flags, when in fact the projects in the regions are extraordinarily slow.
Another the
And-
ministry priority has been, and you mentioned, the PPP statement has been very clear, and our position has been very clear with respect to the flag. I've understood that they're now coming with new names for the regions. Is that
Yeah,
so?
that's another thing that I heard about. At that very meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, each regional chairman was given the opportunity to report on what is taking place in the region. And many of these issues that Colin would have pointed out earlier was raised by regional chairmen at that meeting.
Yeah,
So the ministry is fully aware of what is taking place
good.
at the regional level.
Yes.
But from then to now, we haven't heard anything else from them, whether, they want the region to move further, to fast track the development and the work program and so on. Nothing.
And so while we are alarmed about the expenditure within the regions,
Right,
what is also equally alarming is the accountability of the expenditure.
absolutely.
Yes, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
And we have, across the various regions, we have seen numerous complaints. We have received numerous complaints about awarding of contracts.
Mhm.
The rationale behind awarding of contracts, you have
Seems to have a will of its own.
we have received
some reason
complaints. I
it's
know we've received a lot from Region 5, but some of the general complaints that we would have received was that REOs are arbitrarily deciding who should be taking what contract, how many contracts should be split between which contractors, etc. We are having a lot of complaints about tendering irregularities, and so when it comes to the auditing of the 2016 accounts, I'm pretty sure we'll have some interesting time. In fact, we already have recently at the recent public accounts, I won't name the region, but at the recent public accounts committee meeting, one of the new REO admitted already breaching the procurement regulation.
Really?
And I know the chairman of the PAC has
PAC.
called for. I think Mr. Sharma was there at the PAC, and he would have asked for a special investigation be done on the awarding of the contracts within that region. But I won't really mention that region.
Right. But tell me something, for the public who listens, even though the RDCs have been in existence for almost 30 years, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people aren't sure how it works, and is who chairs different committees. And so it may be useful to explain to our viewers, who's the head of the works committee, who's the head of the tender board,
Yeah.
who's the head, and so they get an idea of in what way the REO is either complying or not complying with what are the structures. So it isn't just that the RDC meets once a month. You have all these committees,
Right.
and committees have different representatives, but the most critical ones that would deal with oversighting works and tendering and finance committee
Correct,
and
yes,
so on.
yes.
So maybe if you can just give a quick
Sure.
thing to the public.
Well, we have two levels. First of all, the tenders, there are two levels of tendering for the regions. One is at the regional tender board limit, and the other is at the National Procurement Tender Administration Board limit. The government has just increased the amount of ceiling for contracts that are awarded within the regional tender board's limit. And so these works are all advertised, and then they all have a closing date. For contracts that are awarded through the regional tender board, what happens is that there is a date by which they is announced when they will have the opening of the regional tender
Right.
box, and then you have those tenders go to an evaluation committee.
Right.
There is a pool of evaluation committee within the respective regions. The evaluation committee makes a recommendation, and then it goes to the regional tender board for ratification.
Right.
The chairman of the regional tender board is the regional executive officer
By law.
by law.
By law. Mm.
And so, and since I can use an example of Region 1, we had a recent case in Mabruma. I think there was an allocation of 18 million for some internal roads in Mabruma.
Right.
The citizens there were blaming the chairman, what happened to the roads, why the roads are not being done, why the works are not being done for an allocation has been made. When they should have been calling on the REO to say
Right.
why the works are not being tendered, why it's not being fast-tracked,
Yeah,
etc. So I'm happy that you asked that question so
Yeah.
that we understand.
People understand the kind of division of labor within the
Correct.
within the RDC, but nevertheless, the RDC has the final oversight and accountability for
Good.
what's going
but
on.
But the identification of the projects, they are all done through the RDC.
Right.
So it goes through a budget cycle. For example, this year, His Excellency has indicated that they want to have a December budget.
Right.
And the budget cycle has started within all across, where both ministries and regions.
Right.
So circulars would have gone out to the respective agencies by the Ministry of Finance, indicating for them to prepare their budget by a certain date. What happens within the regions, that the regions have their various mechanisms by which they have consultations from the communities. They send out asking communities to identify priority projects. We have councillors themselves who
Right.
have representation for spread, their area spread, and they meet at the RDC level and they determine, based on the presentations that are made, that's where they make their final decision as to the projects that they identify from the region in order of priority for the respective regions and whatever new program they would like to have introduced. This is then submitted to the Ministry of Communities. The Minister of Communities has to sign on, and then it is submit to Ministry of Finance. And we don't hear back anything until there is
The budget.
The budget is announced. I mentioned to you about the regional tender board. The other tender board is the National Procurement Tender Administration Board, and that is done. That evaluation and award is done right here at the Ministry of Finance. And for those projects, if it's 15 million and above, then it has to go onwards to cabinet for
Right.
no objection. And so that's where we are with the procurement
Right.
within the region. In terms of the committee, there is a committee that's called, well, previously Public Works, well, now it's called Infrastructure Committee. And the Infrastructure Committee is made up of the councillors, and generally the vice chairman is the head of the
Right.
Infrastructure Committee. We also have the way called the Finance Committee. The chairman of the Finance Committee generally is the regional chairman.
Right.
And what is the role of the Infrastructure Committee? The role of the Infrastructure Committee is to ensure, firstly, to monitor the works that are happening within the region, that it is being tendered, being carried out in accordance with the approval, and to get update status as to what is taking place with the progress with each project. And this is where we have some problems,
Right.
because the regional engineers are the ones responsible for providing such information to their REO, who is their immediate
Right.
supervisor. But many times we're turning up to RDCs and information is not being provided, one, or if it's being provided, it's being provided in an ad hoc manner, and thirdly, sometimes it's late.
Right. Well, I know being on the PAC in the last parliament that a lot of the criticisms of our side of the House, even though we were in government and were in the minority in the committee, was that there were cases of, in a number of regions, where engineers were signing off on works that were not completed
Yes.
and giving to the REO, and the REO paying, in some cases, paying in advance, even including total payment and stuff like that. And these were highly questionable, and they were told, and REOs were told then, that do not sign off, until there's been an inspection, the works committee
Right.
goes, and so on, and that And that we said to the engineers in those regions, if you sign off and you haven't checked and the work is not completed, it's your neck going in this whole process. So that what we're picking up now is all of this seems to have been dismissed, and that in fact it seems to be almost like cowboy country in the place in terms of how not only the tendering process and how you are selecting people, but also in terms of the oversight by the Works Committee, by the, how do you call it, the signing off
Yes.
that's supposed to be done, so that payment will be paid. These things all seem to have, are being eroded or thrown away by this government.
Because what we have said, at a minimum, because maybe of time constraint, etc., at a minimum, for final payment must be signed off by the head of the infrastructure committee.
Right.
Some of the REOs are cooperating, but most of them are not.
Right.
And they've said clearly that is not part of the law, and hence they don't have to follow it. And so when they think it's appropriate, based on the recommendation of the regional engineer, they will process the necessary final payment.
So it's not a requirement of the law, the chairman has to sign off?
It's in part of it's part of the regulation.
Regulation,
Yeah,
so
we-
it's law. Once it's a regulation, it's a law.
Right.
It's subsidiary law. Yeah.
Okay. And so we have some issues here. And the thing about it, if you have nothing to hide, why you should,
Exactly.
if as an accounting officer, you should be happy as much persons as possible checking the projects.
Mm-hmm.
So that at the end of the day, when the project is complete, no one can say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is part of the complaints that we've been receiving.
Well, you know,
in terms of
I go to
projects.
Region 9 every now and again, and I was checking on the budget. Of course, the same thing you're saying, and I think Mr. Ramphel was telling me while we were waiting to start the program, is that a lot of the RDCs are not getting the monthly financial releases, or the finance committee is not
That's
getting
right.
that. So you have a budget of $1 billion, just to be even, and it's July, and you have no idea as of the end of June or the end of May what has been paid. In Region 9, for example, in January, the RDC asked for the amount of money that was spent of the 2015 budget, how much was returned, what was the state of the projects, and they have not got that up to now. And so they have been told, they were told by the REO there that 51% of the projects are awarded. That's not so. But I mean, and you're talking about awarding in June. Even if it is true, it's awarding in June. And these cannot be true. And again, the REO is not coming to the finance committee
Yeah.
to present. So I think you were having the same experience.
Yes.
And maybe we can put now a little more attention on Region 5, because you have become, your region has become the star in the what seems to be the apnoe AFC
Can't take a seat.
strategy to try to undermine the PPP in Region 5. Yeah, so let me give you an example. How all this transpired, because the public, a lot of the stuff we're getting, Chronicle doesn't really cover these issues, and so some people get from Guyana Times, maybe fleetingly from Kayachor, and so the public need to know a little bit better. So this is your opportunity to really tell us as it is.
All right. Thank you, Comrade Gail, for having me on your program, and pleasant good afternoon to all the viewers out there, especially the residents of Region Number 5. I'm very happy to share with you what is taking place in Region 5 and how it is affecting the lives of our people in that region. Let me go back from the month of January. That is where the first disruption of our RDC meeting started. From January, councillors of the AP and UAFC, they had prevented me from conducting the statutory meeting. And as you mentioned earlier, Comrade Gail, that at the statutory meeting is where we make decisions
Right.
for the people of that entire region.
Right.
That is where the services will be delivered to the people. So from January to June, they have disrupted all those meetings,
Right.
6 meetings consecutively. Councillors from the coalition side, the coalition government,
How many
They-
seats do they have?
They have 8 seats in the
And
region.
how many do we have?
And we have 10.
Okay.
But presently, there are only 7 councillors that are sitting there for them. 7 they have in the council.
We have a
presently.
vacancy.
Yes, a vacant seat is there. So they disrupt in the meeting. I know many of the viewers out there would have already see what is taking place, right? When they making loud noise, banging the table, and so
Right.
on, right? And so it prevents me from taking control of that meeting
Right.
now. And on one occasion, they even 3 councillors went and they took my chair, the vice chairman chair, and also the regional executive officer chair. So they prevented us from even going and sit in our chair. Right?
And these are elected representatives
Elected
for the APNU
rep-
AFC
right,
behaving in
that's
such a
right.
disgraceful manner.
Right. Now, the breaking up of the meetings, it is not only affecting the supporters of the People's Progressive
Right,
Party.
exactly.
It is affecting all the residents of Region Number 5.
Exactly.
Because individuals from various communities would have come to my office to vent their concern, their dissatisfaction about what is taking place at the RDC statutory meeting. And I am telling you, Comrade Gail and Colin, they are not happy with the situation. They are not satisfied. I'm
Of
talking
course
about
not.
people who are strong supporter of the coalition government
Exactly.
that lives in the region. Recently, I was at a meeting in the community of Hope Town.
Yes.
That's the cooperative society.
Right.
They held a meeting there in celebration of Cooperative Week, and I was invited. I attended, and they were telling me that there is a particular street in a community that is located within the Fort Wellington area. That street was, since under the PPP time, right? It was there, it was budgeted to be constructed. However, a well-known character from the APA and UAFC, the person that is heading the disruption of the meetings, prevented the RDC from constructing that street for the people there. And presently, it is in a terrible state. It is mud, and farmers will traverse that area.
Right.
So it makes it very difficult for the people to move in and out.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about someone who would have campaigned heavily before
Yes.
the elections, telling the people that they will fulfill all the promises.
Right.
That very individual does not want that street to be upgraded. So I said to them at that meeting that, this is development, and we should not deprive no one
Exactly.
from receiving better services to live a much more comfortable life.
Yeah.
Right? And recently, an individual, overseas-based Guyanese who's living in Minnesota, called me from there, saying how happy she was to hear that some representation will be made to have that street
Done.
constructed. Right? So these are some of the things. When now the meetings are disrupted, we cannot make solid decisions there to get those projects off. Although
Right. And you can't
they-
monitor what's going on either.
Right. The work program might be going on, but there are other things that we need
Well, it's
to
only
get done.
15%. It's not anything to shout about, actually.
Right. We spoke, a little was said about the committees and so on. But let me say, because of the breaking up of these meetings, certain informations are not coming to the RDC.
Right.
Right? For example, financial statements, the spendings of the REO's office. Our finance committee is not, I will say it is not functioning presently because of the REO not making himself available. and bringing the necessary information to that committee, whereby we can scrutinize the spending of the
Right.
region in keeping with transparency.
Right. It's the same
Right.
thing in Region 9, actually. I don't know about the other regions, but it's exactly the same thing in Region 9. The RU is not attending the finance meeting, so you are handicapped. You don't have
Yeah.
access to information.
Right. And not only that, the REO, I will say, is taking political directives. Because in the month of June, I had suspended adjourned the statutory meeting
Right.
until a further date. So after I went to the REO, I said to him, he was not present at that meeting, I showed him a copy of the minutes which stated that the meeting was adjourned.
Right.
So I wrote him saying that he should make all preparations for the new date, right? However, he said to me that he will have to seek advice. I said, fine. In my presence, he called a counselor from the APNU AFC side, seeking guidance from that counselor. The counselor said to him that because I did not offer an apology to the president of the Republic of Guyana, he should not facilitate my request in having the meeting on the adjourned date. As such, none of the AFC APNU counselor turned up at that meeting. I was forced to conduct the meeting in the absence of the REO and the counselors from the other side. So these are some of the things that are happening there.
Just to take a pin, the DROs or AROs,
Mhm.
are they being professional in their behavior, or are they following pattern from the RAO?
I will say that they are professional, right? They're behaving professional. However, the REO is not engaging the DREO and the AREO.
Right.
He's not engaging them to have the RDC functioning better,
Right.
right? In many instances, the REO will leave the region, or he will leave the office without informing his junior officers, and residents will come with complaints. No one is there to, the REO is not there, so I can make contact with him to get some of these problems fixed. All right? Most recent, that's from last week to today, I haven't seen the REO. I called him on several occasions. He refused to answer his phone. When there are burning issues in the region, presently,
Well,
they
you
are
had a
flooding.
flood and
Yes, the region is being faced with a very, very difficult situation, the flooding, which
Right.
affects communities across
right.
the region. And so we have other agencies operating within the region, assisting with the situation. However, the REO is not making himself available so we can sit and make concrete decisions on how we can take actions
Right.
to relieve the situation, to bring the situation under control. Yesterday, I was having discussion with an official from the MMA who said to me that they would have exhausted their resources because they had to work within the residential area too, right? And they are seeking assistance from the RDC in providing some materials so we can get some of the sluices and cokers and so blocked to prevent the water from entering the residential area. But the RU is nowhere around.
Right.
He is the financial manager there, so.
Well, let me
I
ask
know.
Colin though and Vic Chan as well. This impasse, this stalemate that has been going on now for 6 months, can't go on forever. I mean, politically it is disastrous. Obviously, if the intention of the government is to harm the PPP, as you said, they're not just harming the PPP, they're harming their own supporters. Because the region,
that's right.
unlike, they seem to have lost the understanding that when you move out of the election mode and you become the president and the government and the RDC, you are there no longer representing only your supporters, you're representing all the people.
That's right.
And therefore, this behavior, and it seems as if, I mean, the president said he doesn't need an apology, I think that's what he said. So why is it, as the president, he can't tell his counselor, the main chief, what appears to be the chief instigator in the region,
And the usual one.
and has a history of being that, of telling that person, back off, because isn't he the president? Doesn't he want
That's
the
right.
Region 5 RDC to function so that the people will have a better life and they might like the government more? I mean, this short-sighted, myopic behavior, and where clearly it seems as if one councillor is, the follow-the-leader type, who even the General Secretary of the PNC, it appears, and or based on the President's own statement as the leader of the APNU and leader of the government, doesn't seem to be able to rein in. So one then thinks, well, then this must be the strategy, because it's impossible for a president or the leader of APNU, which this person belongs to not to say stand down and let the region function. So this is either a case where they don't have any control over their people, or that this is part of a strategy to undermine the region. The problem is that it's not only harming PPP supporters, harming APNU AFC supporters. And I know that efforts have been made to try to find some accommodation, to have some, back off on it and so on. And there's no movement. So it's July. The REO will continue to behave as he is, and I think you're saying is a new REO coming in?
I am not sure. I was told something like that.
Well, we'll see. It seems to be these days, you read in the newspapers, just like you read about the 2 million hectares of land. Who knew about that? No one said about it, no discussion. So, and then you read yesterday about Valda Lawrence talking about the old age pensions. It's like every day you're discovering on Discovery Channel in Guyana. There's no consultation, no information for the people. So what options are available? Colin, you have a lot of experience in local government. Vic Chan, what alternatives? Is there something, could you as a chairman approach the courts? Is there any constitutional issue? Or do we continue like this until the end of the year? I mean, what kind of options, legal or otherwise, are available? Yeah, go ahead.
Before I answer, I just want to make a comment, because you would have asked initially in terms of, why the president didn't call, to
Yes,
say,
sure.
let's go. If you look at the trend, government at one level has been saying nice things. Even the Minister of Communities does it. But when the action on the ground, it's different. It's no different.
Absolutely.
It's no different with the issue that we are confronted. Well, we're not dealing with it today, but what you're confronted with at the Georgetown municipality, and that is whereby you have both the mayor and the deputy mayor comes from the coalition.
Right.
And so you have one action, the mayor doing one thing, and then the deputy mayor obviously quite rightly calling for accountability. But the point remains, the councillors, they have control over their councillors, because all the councillors are their councillors are there through their slate.
Yeah.
So they can very well call them to say, stop, we want you to work, and if you have certain difficulties, etc. And I'm also aware Minister Amnali goes there frequently to Region 5. And so they can very well deal with it. And I think, in my personal opinion now, I think it has reached a stage where it has to be dealt with legally.
Yeah.
Because I was about going to ask him what has been the role of the police in terms of blockage of the legitimate office. Because you were prevented even from entering your boardroom, is that so?
That's
so
right.
what has been the role of the police?
Well, the police was contacted, they came, however, because of the behavior of this individual, right, along with the other councillors from the AP and UAFC, even the police were having a very difficult time in removing them from the area, right? So eventually I had to back off myself. I leave, and then they would have removed from that
So
area.
Region 5 has a bully girl who seems to have, can bully the police as well?
Yes, I think
He's coming
the
with a lot of
police-
political power there, I must say. But I mean, it's a sad situation in Region 5 in particular. Region 5 is probably, when you look at all the regions that we control, it is the one where the political strategy of the government to undermine the region is probably the most antagonistic, provocative, and myopic, just short-sighted, and absolutely, one can't even rationalize it. But it's not in some of the other regions. Some of the general trends are the same. Now, as I said, in Region 7, 4, 7, and 10, we have councillors in those bodies. In some cases, they're on some of the committees, and they're complaining of some of the similar problems in terms of execution of projects and oversight and decision-making, etc. But the problem is Region 5 is probably the most shocking and glaring example in this country of where democracy is being undermined. These are elected officials not being allowed. And so, you know, the president and the government, I'm hearing at all their statements at receptions, you know, that they brought local government elections here. However, democracy isn't about only having election, it's about building the democracy and allowing it to function after the elections. And so we're seeing it at the parliament level, we're seeing it at the RDC level, we're seeing now at the local government level as well, where the NDCs can't get their budgets approved. They took a long time to get their signatures. We still have the outstanding problem with the 6 tied LAAs. And so one of the most, I think, dangerous trends we can see in this country right now is this undermining of what is local democracy. We are seeing democracy being undermined in the parliament and the parliamentary practices, but you're also seeing it in the local government bodies, the new bodies. And Colin, you will remember, during the 2016 budget, you and several of us repeated the question to the minister that the money is allocated for the NDCs,
Yes.
for the newly elected NDCs, to be newly elected NDCs, was not sufficient for their subvention under the Fiscal Transfer Act. He refused to answer us, and he said basically, yes, it's fine. And basically, it's July, no money has been released to these local government bodies either, even insufficient as it is. Nobody's got money. And just to put in the thing about Region 9, there's a rumor going around, which maybe you can say, that although there's this deficiency with the capital expenditure, there seems to be an increase, applications for supplementaries. Now, I'm not sure what's happening in RDCs. You're hearing about it in the ministries. Because in Region 9, for example, the 6211, no, is that? That's the one.
6211, yeah.
60.
That's the one which
That's
allows the
specifically
RDCs,
agency.
the RDCs to have their meetings
Correct.
and so on. In Region 9, that includes the money for the 2 showers,
Yeah,
the
stipends.
stipends for the
Right.
2 showers. Last year, although the budget came late, the region said to the minister that the money was insufficient for them to meet. Now, this is a big region, and they have to meet every month. In Region 8, they meet every 2 months or whatever, they rotate.
Right.
But in Region 9, it was every month. So they had to stop and only have meetings every 2 months. They wrote the minister in December saying, in the new budget, we really need an increase of that heading. When the budget was read in February 2016, I think Region 9, that particular heading, got $1 more.
Yes.
$1 more. And other regions that are controlled by the APNU, which don't have to have stipends of 2
Including
showers,
Region 4.
including Region 4, got enormous increases under that specific head. So again, you're stymieing the region from meeting because it must pay the 2 showers their stipend. And so it's got to make these choices with this budget. And of course, we have raised in Parliament, Colin, the shortage of drugs
Yes.
and medical
And it
supplies,
continues.
and it continues. I remember last year when I went to your region, we had some
Yes,
meetings,
of course.
and people raised the issue, and we started examining what was going on with the drug issue. There's basically been no improvement in the situation since.
But I just want to make 2 quick comments on RDC.
Yeah, we'll have
because
to
I know
start closing off.
so-
We have a few minutes
and then
left.
the NDCs.
Yes,
We spoke about the lack of financial information.
right.
That's right.
And it is purely spiteful, because I say this for one reason. the information to be provided is not that the REO has to go and extract
No,
anything.
no, no.
It's there in the integrated financial mass appraisal
They
system.
get a
the FMAS
printout every
system.
month, don't they?
And they get you go to the computer and you extract it.
Right.
That's
Right.
all it requires. Secondly, we do have issue about slothfulness of the REO, some REOs in signing vouchers. I'll use Region 2 as an example. As of right now, we have an issue with Saudi Hospital because the standby generator. There's a voucher for servicing and fixing the standby generator. If there's long blackout, then you will have issue on the ground there. Then there are complaints about money for drainage, procurement
Right.
for drainage,
Yes.
etc. Works to be done. The vouchers still stuck at the REO's desk. And so you have low spending on one hand, and when you have the vouchers to be processed, it's there sitting. Lastly, I just want to comment on a little on the NDCs because I see our time is close,
Yeah.
very close. It is alarming. While on one hand you have the subvention that have not been released for which they vote for the NDCs to carry and the municipalities for their program, you also have the non-approval of their respective budgets.
Yeah.
And all that is required is that the ministry technical personnel examine it and give their necessary guidance to their minister for approval. If they need certain changes, so be it. But
Yes.
indicate to those NDCs and municipalities what change you would like. But we're speaking about we're into the 7th month, and as of right now, there has not been released. of
And
any-
they have been elected, appointed almost 4 months now.
Correct. And,
Almost 4
and
months.
I'll tell you one way how it's hampering. Yesterday, we talked about the protest at Port Kaituma.
Yeah.
Part of the approximately 4,200,000 is their subvention. But they could not even make an immediate intervention at Port Kaituma because they don't have their subvention.
Yeah.
And I'll give you another alarming
And they don't have their
statement.
budget because some of them have money in their accounts.
Correct.
But they can't touch them because it hasn't been approved. Is that correct?
Correct. And I'll give you another alarming statement. Their 2015 subvention went back to the consolidated fund.
Why?
It was released on the 30th of December to the region, and obviously you can't spend
Goodness
it with
gracious.
this.
That's right.
This
yeah.
is, I'm speaking here, I'm speaking as a matter of fact, and I'm speaking here about the Port Kaituma, Matthews Ridge, Arcaka, NDC. They could not spend their 2015 subvention. It would be in the previous NDC councils, but I'll be the same.
Sure.
So no work was done, and I investigated because I met some of the persons
But when
yesterday.
we had the August 2015 debate, we raised the issue of the subventions.
Yes.
Had they been distributed? What was going on with them? And you mean they never gave the
They gave the RDC the 30th of December.
which is impossible to spend.
Yes.
Because they closed the books on the 31st.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I see that they...
Unbelievable. Anyway, I hope you found, the viewers, our program interesting. And please forgive me, because I know you like to call in.
Local
And
government.
because this is such a big subject, and I know it impacts on you and friends and family in different ways in different parts of the country, we're going to bring them back next week, Thursday, if possible, to continue the discussion on the regions and also the NDCs. And of course, I know those of you in Georgetown want to hear about what's going on in the Georgetown Municipal Council. So we'll have our councillors here as well. So we're going to have a packed program next Thursday. Thank you very much, Colin and Vic
Thank you
Chan.
very
I know
much.
you had
Thank
to
you.
drive
Thank you.
all the way from Region 5. Thank you
Right.
for coming.
You're welcome.
And we have to stand firm and that this type of bullyism that is going on in Region 5 must be opposed. And so I'm calling on you, write your letters to the media, get on Facebook. You know, if you know Minister Bulkan, talk to him directly and tell him stop this nonsense in Region 5, especially if you're an APNU AFC supporter. The Region 5 is there for all the people, residents, regardless of who they voted for. And this young man sitting here, Mr. Vic Ramphul, is a very, good leader, and he's very fair-minded, and the RDC
That's right.
wants to serve the people of Region 5, regardless who voted for them. So help us to make Minister Bulkan and the APNU AFC government wake up and behave themselves and tell Bully Girl back off in Region 5. We'll meet again next Thursday, 12:30, 1:30, right here on Matters of Public Importance. Have a blessed week, and I always tell you, don't drink and drive. We want to hear from you and see you and hear about you next week. So have a blessed week. Ta-ta. See you. Bye-bye.